Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, TGIF is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. But I don't get to go fishing this weekend because we're still under somewhat lockdown. And if you wonder how I get to be here every morning, well, I'm part of the media, so I get an exemption. If CNN can be on the air, by God, JMT can be as well, because you get a whole lot more out of this than you will them yahoos. We got a great show for you today. We're going to start out with an article about President Trump pushing the MAGA agenda right on through this pandemic. He's been able to keep it going, and we're going to talk about that specifically because he's coming under some heat for keeping his promises. And then the WHO chief, not the WHO as in the rock stars, but the WHO, the World Health Organization, is claiming racism for the criticism he is receiving from Taiwan, of all places. So we'll talk about that. And then Dr. Fauci came out with a statement the other day and said that handshaking may be in fact gone forever, and he suggested that it should be. So we're going to talk about some of the things that may be gone forever, and especially handshaking. And of course, that would be quite a shame. But we start with a man who really never really liked handshaking in the first place, and that is the president. According to the Washington Post, Trump forges ahead with broader agenda even as Corona upends the country. In recent days, as the coronavirus pandemic has ravaged the country, I don't know, ravaged, is that true? Have we really been ravaged? I mean, we've had, around 15,000 deaths, maybe a few more. And I'm not downplaying that, but that's hardly ravaged. But anyway, we've been ravaged economically, that's for sure. President Trump's administration has ousted two key inspector generals, adios amigos, moved to weaken federal gas mileage standards, nominated a young conservative for a powerful appeals court, and sent scores of migrants, in other words, illegal aliens, back across the southern border without a customary hearing. So in other words, to translate that, promises made, promises kept, in spite of the pandemic. Donald Trump is trying to deliver on his promises. Wow, what a shocker. I guess it is a shocker if you compare him to other presidents, because the last thing they want to do is promises made, promises kept, but it's kind of the signature of his presidency, I would say. It's a whirlwind of activity taking place away from the spotlight, according to this article in the Washington Post, that highlights how the twin crisis of a viral outbreak and an economic slowdown, it's more than a slowdown, have not slowed Trump's aggressive push to advance his broader agenda in the months before he faces the voters. So, this may be controversial for some people, and I don't really mean it that way, so please kind of hear me out on this. President Trump, in my opinionated, but it's an opinionated fact, has always governed like he was a one-term president. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying he wants to be a one-term president. He's working his butt off. I mean, he was really going full gangbusters before this thing hit, and he's still working hard to get reelected. So I'm not saying he wants to be a one-term president. In fact, that if he was a one-term president, that would go against his winning. What I'm saying is that President Trump is a realist, and he realizes he's only guaranteed one term. And of course, they've tried to steal that from him. But he is governed, and I say this actually as a compliment, that he is governed like he only has one shot at this thing. And I think that's made him extremely effective. And I can't wait. They talk about Trump, unhinged. I can't wait till he gets reelected and it becomes Trump unleashed, man. That's what I want to see. But, it's the difference between MAGA and CAGA, right? Make America great again. Keep America great again. And here's the deal. And I'm channeling my inner Biden when I say it. I've kind of picked up that bad habit from him. Here's the deal. It's not something I used to say, but it kind of has a ring to it. I don't stammer and stutter after I say it like he does and go like, why is my eye bleeding or whatever. But here is the deal. Donald Trump has put America first from day one. And he's still in the middle of this pandemic, even though we're helping people around the world, he is still putting America first. America first was a great political slogan, and it now is a great policy. And really, people are becoming to realize that everything Donald Trump warned us about, campaigned about, has come to pass in many, many ways. Trump, man, like it says here, make America greater than ever. In some cases, Trump is continuing to do what he had been doing. Thank you. Pushing policies that have won him plaudits among his conservative supporters. Now, what should he do? I mean, what should Trump do? Should he just give up? That ain't President Trump. President Trump he is capable of walking and chewing bubble gum at the same time, contrary to some people. It would be, if Biden tried to do that, man, it might be like, a toying with death, walking and chewing gum at the same time. I coughed. Run, hide. It's pollen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm good. I'm good. In others, he is using the broad powers granted to the executive. Besides, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not only am I good, but I got toilet paper. So we're good here, man. But he's used his broad powers granted to the executive branch amid a national crisis to pursue policy goals he has long sought and in some cases struggled to achieve. In case you're wondering, like when I break into that stuff, I try to be seriously entertaining. And if you're looking for political correctness, you got the wrong channel, so to speak, or certainly the wrong show. But they're saying here that he's trying to pursue policy goals he has long sought and in some cases struggled to achieve. Are they comparing him to the Democrats? I mean, the Democrats, man, like that says the real virus destroying America has been right in front of us the whole time. I mean, they're the ones that are trying to push an agenda that they couldn't get voted in on the American people. Donald Trump won the presidency, and he's acting like he won the presidency. He's not acting like the criminal they make him out to be, although, and I've said this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. I'll tell you one thing. Donald Trump committed, without a shadow of a doubt, there's plenty of evidence for this. I always talk about with no evidence. There's plenty of evidence for this. Donald Trump committed the worst crime in the history of the presidency. There is no question about that. And you're saying, what are you talking about? He won. He won, and he's likely to win again. And for that's the two reasons he was impeached. He won, and they might win again. That's why the man was impeached. So he is absolutely guilty of winning, and he's still winning in spite of everything, including a pandemic, and I applaud him for it. The federal government has done a lot and is going to do a lot, Trump said Tuesday during a briefing at the White House. We're going to do perhaps infrastructure, which you wouldn't have gotten approved before, and now people are looking to do it. Now, is this the art of the deal that he's talking about? Now, here's something I would criticize the president on. Yes, occasionally I do criticize President Trump. I would put everybody in this same bag, no matter which side of the aisle they're on. Now, there are some projects that I might agree with and some that I don't. But essentially, right now, I don't really think our government should be passing legislation. Now, what President Trump is doing, appointing judges, cutting regulations, that's a different story. But as far as passing new legislation that is going to cost us mucho bucks, I don't think it should include anything that is not directly in response to the virus or in response to trying to help us recover economically. Anything else needs to wait right now. That's just my opinion. And it's an opinionated fact, nonetheless. In the ensuing weeks, Trump has since pushed tighter immigration controls, relaxed environmental regulations, pursued tax cuts, advocated stricter curbs on voting, sought to undermine the Affordable Care Act, and authorized military operation against Central America. First of all, he's always been opposed to the Affordable Care Act. Why would he change spots now? He's never, ever been for the Affordable Care Act. And he was ready to end it on day one, Obamacare. It was, quite frankly, the Republicans that squawked a bunch. But when push came to shove, of course, John McCain led the way, God rest his soul. By the way, John McCain, if you hadn't heard me say this, he is going to go down in history as the greatest senator the Democratic Party ever had. But Donald Trump has been opposed to Obamacare. He was ready to get rid of it. It was the Republicans that didn't have the cojones to actually do what they said they were going to do for 8 years leading up to that. And this idea of curbs on voting, please chime in on whatever Facebook page you're listening to, or make a comment on our YouTube channel. By the way, our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, you got to spell it all out, is up and running at full speed right now, and we're putting our shows on there. Please go there, subscribe, and view the show from there from time to time. I'd really appreciate it. Get our numbers up, because numbers matter. But tell me where Donald Trump has tried to curb voting. And please, for the love of God, don't tell me, don't insult American people of whatever color saying it's voter ID. Because every time I hear it, if I were an African American, let me just tell you, I would be pissed off every single time I heard that. Because it's insinuating that for some unique special reason, black Americans cannot obtain an ID. What a ridiculous proposal that is. You could argue whether we should have voter ID or not. I certainly think we should, but the idea that black Americans can't get an ID is ludicrous and is an insult. Please tell me where I'm wrong on that. And Obamacare already covered that. As far as like the cartels, Donald Trump is trying to defend the nation, trying to defend the American people. And I guarantee you that the drugs coming across the Mexican border, the cartel, let alone those terrorists that had a spark of divinity, according to Nancy Pelosi. I forgot what the name of it is. It don't really matter. Coming out of Guatemala, that those terrorists are not more of a threat to us as a nation than coronavirus. So Donald Trump is actually doing everything he promised and is defending this country. I would ask the writer of this article, or these progressive media, progressive liberal Democrats, all one and the same basically, what do they really expect Donald Trump to do right now? Of course he should be dealing with the virus, but do they really want him, and I know this is what they want, do they really want to just have him go sit in the Oval Office in a corner and wait to die? Is that what they want him to do? They so want him to be positive. They ask him every day, has he been tested again? You know, they are like, some of them talk about praying for Trump. And I believe that some of them are praying that he tests positive, man. But they want Donald Trump to just sit in the corner and die, or at least come out and tell the American people, we're all going to die. And we are someday. I mean, that's the truth. And what about Joe Biden? Are they expecting to wait for him to get elected? Because if he gets elected, the Republic, and I'm not talking about Republicans, I'm talking about the Republic, which is what we actually live in, by the way, that will die if Joe Biden gets up there. That's for sure. White House officials said Trump is squarely focused on the pandemic, not politics. He's probably doing a little bit of both, to be honest with you. White House spokesman Judd Deere said, the bold and decisive actions this president has taken throughout this pandemic are purely about protecting the public health. And I would say he definitely has done that mostly. Is he still playing some politics? Probably. Certainly the other side is. Whether it be providing food to children impacted by school closures, closing our border. That's one thing and maybe I'm heartless. I don't think about that. I love children. But are our kids really, if it weren't for schools, would they be going hungry? That's a whole nother issue if they are. To me, that if a parent is not able to feed their children in this great nation, then something is wrong, because there is plenty of opportunities to feed kids. I'm not opposed to the schools giving out lunches, but the idea that kids wouldn't be fed if it weren't for the schools, I challenge that myself. And if a parent is doing that, they need to be looked into. But it says closing our border to certain countries and regions. Well, we probably need to shut down the border, period, where the virus is spreading, or pausing all interest on student loans. So Donald Trump hears you. He ain't giving it to you for free, but he's willing to listen. The president wants us to put politics aside and come together to make sure we emerge from this crisis healthy, safe, and strong. And guess who is approving of this, of what the president's doing? And this is what's got the snowflakes melting. It's got what the, people running for the hills, and Biden probably, I don't know, Biden probably don't even think about it, but it's got the mainstream media and the progressive leftist Democrats that are running the Democratic Party. Trust me, that's who's running the party. It's got them freaking out, and that is the American people have an approval rating for how President Trump is handling this virus above 60%. Yes, of the American people. In spite of all the hammering he's getting, the American people see what he's doing, and they say that 60% are approving of it. I don't know if you saw this. I should have pulled the video, but maybe we'll talk about it some next week or something, or I'll post it on my Facebook page. But Governor Gavin Newsom got into a bit of a tiff with, I believe it was Whoopi Goldberg. It may have been Joy Behar. One of the View twats up there, man. I mean, I got the Twitter twats, now the View twats. That's what I call the squad, by the way, the Twitter twats. But the View gals up there, they basically chastised Newsom for praising Donald Trump's efforts in helping out in California with the federal government's reaction to that. And they basically asked, why are you kissing his ring? And Gavin Newsom got a bit pissed, and I don't blame him, man. But Trump has also stepped up his aggressive actions toward agency inspector generals, officials charged with serving as independent watchdogs, but who Trump claims are part of a deep state campaign against him. Now, why would Donald Trump think something foolishly as that? That there are people in the deep state, including these inspector generals, that are out to get him? I wonder why he thinks that. There's no merit to that, is there? I mean, good Lord. Has anybody been attacked by the deep state and been stabbed in the back more than Donald J. Trump? I mean, I don't know, man. Trump derangement syndrome is real. You're not paranoid if they're really out to get you. And oh, by the way, if you're getting paranoid, there's a group called Paranoids Anonymous out there. They just won't tell us where they meet. That's the only problem. He made a reference Tuesday to naming 7 new inspectors general and a nod to the aggressive moves he has made in recent days to curb oversight and to push out government officials seen as insufficiently loyal. First of all, Donald Trump doesn't mind oversight. I mean, everything he touches is Trump. And he's basically putting the Trump stamp on the White House. I mean, who comes out and just takes questions the way he does over and over, who randomly takes questions walking to the helicopter, which no president ever does that, by the way. Donald Trump is not trying to hide anything. But here's the deal, man. Rats are sneaky. These swamp rats are trying to take advantage of us being preoccupied and trying to fill in. Let me tell you, rats are sneaky. I got a quick story. I grew up raising cattle and farming and ranching. And we used to have this big old tin barn when I was just, I was a kid, maybe 13 or 14. I started driving a tractor when I couldn't even reach the pedals. I had to stand up. But that's just, it's things that are probably child abuse, right? But I guess I come by some of this stuff natural. But when I used to go to the barn, I knew there was rats in there, man. We did everything we could to get rid of them, but they were always chewing on the feed and the corn and whatnot. So I used to open the door and they'd be everywhere. But I learned a little trick. If I just went up there and beat on the side of the barn door and made a lot of noise, I opened the door. They were still there, but they were hiding. And what I couldn't see, I didn't worry about. That's what's happening in D.C. right now. The rats are still there, and Donald Trump, he knows they're there, and he's trying to shine a light of day on. When he spots one, he's trying to get rid of them. Trump's abrupt Friday night firing of Michael Atkins, they're making a big deal of this, the Inspector General for the intelligence community, indicated that the purge of central players in the impeachment process had not been tempered by the coronavirus outbreak. Well, first of all, he should have canned this dude sooner. This is the guy that gave old Shifty Schiff the idea that there was a whistleblower, even though Schiff and them, they already knew. It says here, Atkins had alerted Congress about a whistleblower complaint that led to Trump's impeachment over his actions towards the Ukraine. Now, I wonder if President Trump might have done a little something quicker about this virus, the China virus, the Wuhan virus, whatever you want to call it. It is that, by the way. If he hadn't have been being impeached when it first started coming on the national scene. I think he reacted pretty swiftly anyway, but any human being would have been distracted by that. Certainly Congress was. It wasn't on their radar screen except some few like Tom Cotton. He knew it. But Shifty, here's the thing about this Atkins fella and the whistleblower. Shifty Schiff, man. He already knew about the whistleblower. It turns out his staff was working with the whistleblower and act like they didn't know anything. Man, what a lying butt. But what is old Shifty Schiff up to right now during the pandemic? What's he doing, man? I mean, he's actually trying to impeach the president. Did you know that? While he's up there trying to impeach the president. Some of Trump's defenders say the president is right to continue pushing his agenda during the pandemic. Well, count me as one of those people. I love Donald Trump's press conference. He ought to give me some and other alternative media chance at the press conferences. My numbers are better than Joe Biden's right now. We talked about that yesterday. Joe Biden did a virtual town hall meeting and had like 1,600 viewers on YouTube. Our viewers the other day, God, we had almost 11,000 just on Facebook alone. And that doesn't count the views we've got across the America's Voice News Network. We're on Pluto TV now. We're streaming on every type of device you can have. Amazon Fire Stick, Roku, and I guess Amazon. I said that, didn't I? Amazon Fire Stick, Roku, all those devices. Download the free app, by the way, of your iPhone and your Android. And we're now, through America's Voice News, we're on Dish Network. We're not only nationwide, worldwide, but we're universal. We're broadcasting to the stars, I guess the ancient aliens, on channel 219. Check it out, man. So our numbers are better than Joe Biden's. So why can't I get a question in the Oval or in the press briefing? You know, I'm doing better than he is. They really, all jokes aside, they should let people like America's Voice News send correspondents in there, like Breitbart's of the world and stuff like that. Shouldn't just sit there taking CNN's questions. Said Ari Fleischer, a former press secretary for President George W. Bush, many of the president's policy ideas preceded this crisis, talking about President Trump, and it's appropriate for him to enact laws. It is part of the president's mission to keep America moving forward on all fronts. So the president is trying to keep America moving on all fronts. Well, impeach 45. By all means, we ought to impeach the president for trying to move the country forward. I mean, that's got to be criminal in some way, right? The coronavirus outbreak has allowed Trump to step up his campaign to restrict immigration, including by effectively shutting down unauthorized crossings at the southern border. So he's shutting the border down? Hallelujah! I mean, good Lord, I'm glad that he's doing that. Brings my innermost preacher out. I ain't a preacher nor a policeman, but I play one on TV from time to time. And by the way, since I'm on that about preaching, let me just say you this, that the jokes aside, every now and then I put jokes aside. I wish everybody out there that this applies to a happy Passover. I'm not sure if that's the proper term, or a happy Easter. I know there are people that are celebrating Passover that probably won't see my show until Monday morning, but peace be with you. I'll pray for your family on Easter and Passover. You pray for mine. We're in this all together. But as far as him stopping the border crossings and turning people around, man, Mexico is realizing this as well. Build the wall. It's better for all. That's what I've been saying for a while. I hadn't said it in a while, but of course the president is free to use that. Build that wall, man. It is absolutely better for all. The EPA has plowed ahead with its deregulatory agenda. So in other words, the things that President Trump can do on the America First and the MAGA agenda, he's still doing. Last month, the agency issued a memo instructing petrochemical plants, power companies, and other major industries that they could monitor their own pollution levels during the virus outbreak. So President Trump is trying to keep the lights on. He's trying to keep our energy industry alive. We talked about this earlier in the week. As I say, go to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. Check out our YouTube channel. I did several stories about the perilous position our energy independence and our energy industry features. So, but he's trying to save the country. He's trying to keep us going, trying to keep the lights on. But by all means, we should impeach 45. But you know who else is probably pissed off about this pandemic as much as anybody? It's old Greta. Old Greta, man. There you go, man. See, we were supposed to die from, global warming and everything else. and we stole our dream. Now this pandemic has stole our dream because we all going to die. And we are someday. Maybe not today. And I'm not belittling the people that are dying by any stretch. But the reality is the coronavirus so far has not even killed as many people as a really bad case of the flu, let alone other major killers like drug addiction, like fentanyl coming across the border that we have thousands of people dying from weekly basis here, and we don't ever pay any attention to that because it don't really fit the narrative, does it? Trump's efforts to remake the federal judiciary, so he's keeping them judges going, are also moving apace, including, and we got to give old turtleneck, I call him, old turtlehead, Mitch McConnell some credit there, including his nomination Friday. Sacrilege, right? He had nominated a 37-year-old judge, so the dude might be there for a while, to fill a vacancy on the powerful U.S. Appeals Court for the District of Columbia. And the congregation said, amen, brother. Keep it going, Mr. Trump. Keep it going, Mitch. We need to pack that court with conservative people like we can now. As I say, President Trump, man, he has been on the ball and realizes it's nobody's promised tomorrow, so he is doing his job. He is working every day like he's only got one term to do it in, and I think the fact that he's doing that is going to give him that second term. 4 more years, right? President Trump is being the commander-in-chief. These are my words. President Trump is being the commander-in-chief. He's not leading from behind like Obama did. I mean, Obama, he talked about the difference between Obama and President Trump. President Trump is truly the commander-in-chief. Obama didn't want to be commander-in-chief, leader of the free world. He wanted to be a voice in a chorus, and that's the best he literally said that we're going to lead from behind. And Biden, Joe Biden, well, all you got to do is play this video right here to explain Joe Biden.
By the way, you know, I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
I play that video all the time because if you're for Biden, you should have your eyes taped wide open, slap you around if sleep deprivation. Because if you're still thinking that Joe Biden should be the next president of the United States, you should have to watch that video on a continuous loop until you cry uncle and not Uncle Joe. Let's move on to the next story. But let me just end by saying, thank God President Trump is a promises made, promises kept kind of guy. So I say more power to it. I know he's focused on the virus, but keep the MAGA agenda, the America First agenda moving as best he possibly can. And that is exactly what he's doing. All right, we're going to move on to a Washington Post article, another one. And this is coming about Taiwan and WHO, the chief of WHO, the World Health Organization's claim of racist campaign against him. This guy is saying that Taiwan is racist. That's interesting. Taiwan hit back Thursday after the chief of World Health Organization accused the island's government of participating in a racist campaign to smear and intimidate him, deepening the political furor surrounding an agency in the crosshairs of the Trump administration for its alleged pro-China bias. Alleged pro-China bias. Wow. Alleged, I mean, come on. Even a blind man could see that these dudes are like deep in the pocket of China. But this whole deal about Taiwan, they talking about Taiwan is prejudiced because they're saying he's in the pocket of the Chinese. And it got me to thinking, what is the difference other than freedom? What is the difference? I mean, these Taiwanese, why are they so prejudiced against this dude because he's backing up China? So I thought about this because I'm really confused, and I'm always trying to help. So maybe Billy Bob tells me, if you haven't seen my psychic sidekick, yeah, I'm a fish whisperer, trying to make fishing great again. Can't go because we shut down. But Billy Bob, he keeps me straight here. He has a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. Check us out. But he tells me that there is a difference beyond freedom between the Chinese and the Taiwanese, and that we can see it in their leaders. There's the president, Mr. Xi Jinping, or whatever. Not too many pings in Hawthorne. That's the president of China. So I looked at that, and there, lo and behold, there's the president of Taiwan. Other than the fact that, she's a woman, maybe I'm wrong, but aren't they the same nationality? Really? I mean, I'm glad we were able to clear that up, because I was under the impression that the people of Taiwan were actually Chinese and that the people of China were Chinese. So it's kind of hard to be racist. Kind of reminds me of that one Star Trek episode, the original Star Trek, where the one dude was white on the left and black on the right, and the other one was vice versa, and they hated each other. I don't know. Some of us are sicker than others. Tedros, who is the head of the WHO, I don't know if he's the lead singer or not, a former Ethiopian health and foreign minister, has faced growing criticism of his handling of the COVID-19 outbreak since January, when the UN body repeatedly backed position espoused by the Chinese government and praised Beijing's epidemic response. So what exactly is the problem here? I'm trying to figure that out. Because really, communists like China, aren't they known for truth? I mean, the communists are just purveyors of truth. Show me Russia, they're all about the truth. I mean, Castro's Cuba has always been about the truth. I mean, communists have always been about the truth, haven't they? You remember when we actually knew the difference? What's really sad about that joke, if it may be sad, not funny, that's sad because I'm trying to be a little bit, I'm trying to be seriously entertaining. But do you remember when we actually used to know the difference between communism and Americanism? We actually taught a class on that. The difference between freedom of speech and what yahoos like LeBron James talk about. I mean, remember, we're not going to play the video now, but I know you've seen it. I played it, I think, last week or the week before. It needs playing all the time because the shelf life on it ain't very good. Like most of the liberal claptrap, it's doesn't have a very good shelf life. LeBron James talking about freedom of speech and people who need to know. Yeah, oh my God. Backing up the China. I mean, basically, why don't we make him the head of WHO? He couldn't do any worse a job. In the weeks since Chinese dissidents, anti-Beijing activists, and people of Hong Kong, in other words, people seeking freedom, and Taiwan have flooded social media with posts that accuse Tedros of lying on behalf of China's government, as well as cartoons that show the director generally blinded by the Chinese Communist Party. Hey, trust me on that. There are people really blinded by the Chinese Party. They need your eyes. They just take them, right? And if this guy needed a new pair of eyes, he could probably get one from a Uyghur Muslim, right? But a stew of this is what the Washington Post says, a stew of intensely politicized content that at times veered on abuse. So I guess what they're, saying is China, they may lie, but they're misunderstood. I mean, after all, it wasn't China that brought the China virus to the world, or the Weiyun virus. It couldn't have been, right? It had to be this. Two MAGA hat white dudes, man. They snuck into China. I can see it now. Two guys wearing MAGA hats, probably in the dead of winter, like in Chicago. I don't know if they had a noose or not. They came in and spread, like pixie dust, the Weiyun virus all there. So it's MAGA people that are responsible. Was there ever a doubt that it was MAGA people? Probably led by Donald Trump from the basement of the White House. But the WHO, the HOW, has faced legitimate criticism and anger over its conduct in the past 3 months, and the ministry countered. So the WHO has been controversial. I've seen the WHO before. I mean, we won't get fooled again. No, the old boss, same as the new boss. I guess that's a different WHO. Anyway, I want to sum up this whole controversy with the WHO, the UN, China. Mr. Mike Pompeo put out a statement the other day, and it was videoed. It wasn't like Joe Biden put out a lengthy statement like we talked about yesterday. He actually, Mr. Pompeo, got in front of the cameras and made some sense. But let's play this video And I'm telling you, Donald Trump did a great job in appointing this guy to lead our State Department. Check it out.
Point we're reevaluating our funding with respect to the World Health Organization. This is very consistent with what President Trump said since the beginning of his campaign. Organizations have to work. They have to deliver the outcomes for which they were intended. And we need to make sure that not only the World Health Organization, but every international organization, that we take taxpayer money and give it to them for the benefit of America. We need to make sure it's delivering on those taxpayer dollars. The World Health Organization is no different in that respect. They have to execute on the mission that they are designed to achieve. And we've seen, with respect to the World Health Organization, here we are. It hasn't accomplished what it was intended to deliver.
There have been some calls on the World Health Organization.
They were just about to ask him about replacing the people at WHO, and he rightfully said, hey, we need to discuss that down the line. Right now, let's focus on what we're doing. But Pompeo said it correctly, that Donald Trump campaigned on this, not necessarily specifically the WHO, but I'm sure he mentioned World Health, but on any international, and I think Pompeo said it absolutely spot on, any international group, whether it be NATO, whether it be the UN, the WHO, anything, where American taxpayer dollars are going into, you could debate whether the function is correct or not. That's a separate issue. But if we're going to put money into something, taxpayer money, it needs to function like it's supposed to. You could debate whether we should even be doing it. That to me is a separate issue. But if we are going to do it, it is incumbent upon the president, in this case, and Mike Pompeo is right, to make sure these organizations function correctly. If you go back to the Impeach 45 about the Ukraine, that's exactly what President Trump was doing on the perfect phone call. He was questioning whether we should give more money to the Ukraine if they were still as corrupt as a $3 bill. I mean, that's the truth. And so Pompeo is saying that promises made, promises kept, and that Donald J. Trump has been the man all along. Now, to me, one of the things that, and this is kind of a side note, but since we're talking about Taiwan and the WHO and all of that kind of stuff, one of the things I think President Trump should do, just like he did with Israel and moving the capital of Jerusalem, promise made, promises kept. Keep in mind, every president since World War II promised to do that. Only one actually did it. But Donald Trump, in my opinion, should seriously consider recognizing Taiwan. Now is not the time to do that. But in a second term, I believe, and I think he probably is on his radar screen, recognizing Taiwan, because Taiwan is a beacon of freedom in a totally corrupt part of Asia. China, communist. China, bad. Not the Chinese people, the Chinese communists. Taiwan, freedom. A little bit better choice, I can tell you that, but I think he ought to do that. All right, we're going to close out the show with this last article here, and it is something that Dr. Fauci, as some people say, Dr. Doom, said about some of the things that should change moving forward. In other words, to get past this virus. This is from The Hill. Fauci said, "I don't think we should shake hands ever again." Anthony Fauci, the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and a key member of the White House Corona Task Force, suggested that Americans should never shake hands again. So once again, President Trump been right from the beginning. He's never liked shaking hands. President Trump is somewhat of a germaphobe, right? People know this. And so actually, it turns out that President Trump was right once again. We probably should be washing our hands and not be so touchy-feely. And he was criticized for that. As I say, turns out he's right again. Fauci told the Wall Street Journal podcast, maybe he needs to come on mine, when you gradually come back, you don't jump into it with both feet. You say what are the things you could still do and still approach normal. I'm not sure what normal is. It's always been hard for me to adjust to normal, because to me, normal is a cycle on a wash machine. One thing about me, some are sicker than others, man, I don't know that I ain't ever been normal. One of them is absolute, he said, Fauci said, compulsive hand washing. Man, I've washed my hands so much, I mean, they're peeling right now, right? The other is you don't ever shake anybody's hands. So, Is he right? I think it's going to go away. I think he's right about that. I think people are going to be more resistant to that. The whole social distancing thing is real. I think it is going to have a shelf life after this, even when we get a vaccine and all of that, which I believe is coming. How is this going to affect us in general? I think it's going to affect a lot of things, but one of the things I think is sports. And there's been no sports on TV at all, which drive a lot of people like me crazy. I like to watch various sports. I don't think there's going to be an NFL and a college football season this year. I'm not saying it's never coming back. I just don't think it's going to happen because the people aren't going to be willing, even if the government says we can go back to work, they're not going to be willing to get 50, 80,000 people shoulder to shoulder. I don't see it happening. It could change contact sports forever. Really, it could. And gatherings in general. I just don't see people. I know people are tired of sitting at home, but do you really think people are going to automatically pile in and go down the golden trough at one of these buffet places right now? I just don't see people wanting to get back around 100 people in a restaurant. I just don't see it happen. I hope I am wrong, because it could affect me dramatically. And I'm not talking about eating, but it could affect the way one of my greatest passions, which most of you watch the show know. I love to fish, and I usually go on these big party boats. I work for one as a guide, so to speak, or an instructor. And so it could affect me. But Fauci also said he hopes to see light at the end of the tunnel by the end of April. So he's espousing something that President Trump was talking about, that maybe, Easter, happy Easter everybody this weekend, Passover as well. But Fauci is saying he hopes that we can see light at the end of the tunnel in April. I mean, for God's sakes, hope. Fauci is espousing hope. Well, what should we do now? I mean, he's 1 minute he's a little bit Dr. Doom, and the Democrats and progressives go, yeah, Fauci is the man. Now, of course, he's probably trying to write a book on this. He's written several, by the way, not necessarily criticizing. A book is coming after all of this. But the Democrats, he's our hero when he says everybody's going to die. But when he says that we could be past this thing, or at least some glimmers of hope by the end of April, well, what should happen to him then? Can you impeach Fauci? Can Fauci be impeached? I mean, he's an appointed person. Can the Congress impeach him like they want to do impeach 45? I mean, it's hard to believe. And this is where I would ask our listening on it. How many American people, even if you hate Donald Trump, I don't get it, but I understand some people do. If Trump derangement syndrome is so real, and it is real, that you're going to accept not only voting for Biden, which I say you should be tortured with by watching that video of Biden, but do you really think the president should be impeached? Because believe me, the Democrats are wanting to do this again. Impeached during a pandemic. You really think that's good for the American people? It's crazy. A lot of things are going to change. And what is going to change? And how are you going to react if Donald Trump is the president once again? Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and share it with others. We're going to have our website up and running. We're tweaking it right now because there'll be various things and ways you can help us there, and I'll give you more details of that probably next week. Go to our Facebook, but go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch some videos there. I will pray for your family. You pray for mine. But above all else, like I say, each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.